To the Porthole to Justice. This is Amelia Duran, your host, and it is October 15th, and that was a remix by Zeph Daniel. He says he told me it reminds him of cruising the coast, PCH, for the perfect wave. So, yeah, that's his new song. You can find it on Spreaker.com under the music section. So, I have a guest with me today, and I'm having a little bit of technical difficulties with sound, but I have Paula Flowe, activist and advocate. She's coming on the show. Let's see, let me stand by. I have to have her call on a phone because we weren't able to pipe her in through my audio. Anyways, we've had Paula Flowe on the show before. Okay, here she is. Paula?
Hi, Amelia. It's Paula.
Hi, welcome to the Porthole to Justice. Can you hear me okay?
I can.
Awesome.
How about my volume? Am I doing okay?
You're doing awesome. Thank you so much for coming on. It's been a year since I've had you, nearly a year since I've had you on the show last. And you have the hittingstopshere.com. You're a activist and an advocate for you're speaking out against corporal punishment in our schools and within the government in general. And last time I talked to you, you were sleeping in front of in Washington D.C. outside of the U.S. Supreme Court building, and you had come on the show. So where are you at right now with the Hitting Stops Here?
Oh, right. Well, that's been it has been over a year already, just about, since I was bringing to your attention about John Klein having a federal bill in his hands. It was called Ending Corporal Punishment in Schools Act, H.R. 2268, which had been introduced several times. So I'm going to kind of go all the way back to the U.S. Supreme Court building and then bring you up to speed. I'd like to let everybody know what the needs are in case people want to support this cause. And I also am still very much involved with the activism to have Child Protective Services, also known as CPS, exposed. Please help me remember to bring up the issue of Paquita Riley, who is in very big trouble right now, and so are her children. So I definitely want to make sure I talk about CPS involvement as well. If you'll
sure,
help
if you don't mind, can we just sort of premise, you know, you are an activist, a very respected activist within the movement. And can you just correlate that, you know, you premised a little bit the last time we spoke about, you know, this being the Pandora's box for abuse in our system.
Yes. Yes, it is. Well, first of all, we're talking about the legalized use of an object that the U.S. Supreme Court Justice has deemed a deadly weapon. So, and that would be the wooden board. It has several euphemisms, such as a paddle, or some teachers name it you know what? It's funny. I can't even think of some of the silly names, but teachers give that board a very, like a euphemized name to make it seem like it's your buddy. Like, this buddy's going to help you behave in school. But basically, what the U.S. Supreme Court Justice refers to it is as a deadly weapon. And, you know, I'll be honest with you, Amelia, sometimes I feel like the activism that I'm leading, and have been now for over 10 years, because I witnessed child abuse occurring in one of the still public schools of the 19. It was the state of Georgia, as a matter of fact. And the fact that parents, teachers, childless adults, people who just are aware that an object deemed a deadly weapon is sanctioned for use on our under 18 population as long as they are on U.S. government-funded school property should be sending off bunches of lights and alarms to anyone who is paying attention to the variety of things that are causing our country's demise. We are falling right now, and we started out as a blessed nation. We started out as a nation of people who came over here, wanted the right to worship in the manner in which they chose. It was under leadership led by people who believed in the Bible, so it is based on a Christian foundation. And we have all of this down on the level of federal law, state law, local law. This is a deadly weapon, and yet, in spite of all that it is out there on the side of having this object banned, it persists in our schools. Mm-hmm. And one of the sad things, too, is the fact that when you read about pupil beatings going on in our schools, what you're going to find out is that the statistics that they give out, if you really research, you would find out that the statistics that they are publishing, saying, oh, last year 100,000 children were beaten. Oh, it's down from 150,000 the previous year. These are the types of information that you will receive by reading or listening on the news, and all of it is a lie. First of all, after the year 2006, it became optional. It was no longer mandatory to keep statistics on pupil beatings. So as of the end of school year 2006, 2007, it became totally optional. And furthermore, how the statistics are kept is all done in willy-nilly fashion. Mm-hmm. So in one school, 10 children may be beaten, say, twice in that week. So that sounds like 20 beatings. Mm-hmm. However, they don't even count the number of beatings. They count the number of students that are hit. So there could be a child who's beaten every single day. That would be 185 beatings in that one school, just for that one child. But instead, at the end of the school year, the statistic would say we had one beating in this school. And people are unaware of this. They're saying that, oh, well, we have pupil beatings still allowed in 19 U.S. states. This is false also. It's legal in about 40, it's not only legal, but being practiced in at least 45 states, because it is, as long as this practice is allowed in our public schools, then private and charter, they could just do whatever they want. It will take it being banned in the 19 states where it's occurring in public schools for it to be banned in the more than 40 states where it's occurring in our private and charter schools. Ohio, for example, they banned in, I think it was 2009, but it's still going on widely in their private schools.
And it's more concerning because we see more of a police presence on the school's property, you know,
yes.
and we're seeing more violence, you know, than we ever have before on school property.
Yes.
So this is really concerning. But you had mentioned that, you know, and I think we both agreed on this, was that this is a realistic goal. Like, we can stop this. We can stop that America is one of the only schools that still practices public beatings or beatings in the schools. Out of many nations, I think we're like the only one. I think, did I hear you correctly?
Oh, actually, this is going on in quite a few nations. The thing is that there are more than 24 nations that refuse to ban in their country until it's banned here in the U.S. So here we could be protecting children in other nations simply by banning it here in America.
Yeah, and setting the tone for the rest of the world. So, you know, when we talk about beatings, you know, we're talking about something that outside of school is literally illegal. It's illegal on private property. It's illegal in private homes. Actually, it can be deemed a crime. Your children can be removed from your homes for committing these types of crime. As we all know, CPS very often gets involved. However, if it happens on the school, it is legal. It was what you're telling me. They have immunity. They have immunity as a government employees. Right.
Which by now when I started the campaign in 2006, a lot of people were not as aware or awake regarding crimes our government are at this moment committing against us. And we're talking a whole medley of them, from chemtrails to Monsanto food to over-vaccinating our children. It's just endless right now. However, the proof of the pudding is found in who's taking care of the children, who's looking out for the best interests of the children. Now, we have our most vulnerable children in the nation who face this mostly. This is not happening in rich white American schools. I don't care if a kid is running, chewing gum, failing a test, walking in school late. If he's in a wealthy school in America, particularly in an all-white neighborhood, he is not being beaten. Mm-hmm. As a matter of fact, the top 100 schools, which is attended by the mostly, of course, the white population, this is totally prohibited. But the nation's bottom 100 schools are all facing this form of child abuse. So I think that kind of sends a message right there. Uh-huh. And the thing is that the reason why I refer to this issue as the Pandora box, and why I say it is so very important for people to pay attention and bring it to a stop, is because it sends a message to our U.S. government that when we know in this country that our sons and daughters, our developing human beings, our future of this nation, are the only ones who are still facing a board that was used on the slaves, on ancestors of Black Americans, when we know that that is not only going on, but that the primary targets are the descendants of these slaves. Number one, starting with boys, and even, of course, girls and even teenagers who are pregnant in school. They are the ones who are primarily receiving this. And if Black American children weren't receiving this, let me tell you something. None of the children would be receiving this. They're not going to they're not going to beat white children who are wealthy, but the Black children are protected, because that doesn't even make sense. Why would you do that? And why would somebody who has money and is well educated and would be able to afford a lawyer allow that?
Disproportionately, I think that the targets are the poorer economies, and more vulnerable children are those that are in communities with less resources, would you say?
Oh, of course. And the thing is that as many times as I have, let me just kind of finishing up that point. What I really would like your listeners to gather from all of this is that the most simple thing that can be done right this second to make America truly be on its way to being great would be, number one, having children protected from legalized assault and battery when they are in school, a place where they are sent, so that they may learn the things and ways of being to be able to successfully pursue life and liberty. Once you start abusing children, and this is in Psychology 101, and I don't care if you get a D- in the class, you get that the biggest problem that the average adult had in their childhood was facing abuse at the hands of somebody. They might have witnessed it, but in most cases it was firsthand. When you have been well raised, you do not generally, it has to be a very rare case that you then turn around and abuse another person. This is learned behavior, and our U.S. government is paying U.S. government-funded employees called educators funds, which they're allowed to take an object that's already said, this is a deadly weapon. If you use this, you have violated the 14th Amendment, except for school children. Why would we allow that? And in so doing, what signal does that send to our U.S. government officials who can stop it?
Sure. And what message does that send? What message does that send to children that are in government custody and to foster parents that have immunity because the children are in government custody? We can send a loud message across the board by backing this initiative. And can you share with us, Paula, about, you have two bills, right? Am I correct? That they currently...
Well, actually, it is the same bill, the Ending Corporal Punishment in Schools Act. That's the one you're referring to?
Yes, exactly.
Okay, well, first of all, back in 2009, I had already started the campaign in 2006, and it's really funny. It was September 11, 2006, when I first witnessed legalized school beatings of our children. And at that point, I had already been teaching for 26 years. But I taught in night schools. You know, they were well-mixed, mostly white schools where I've taught most of those 26 years. And when I went down to Georgia, and I was in a community which was primarily Black, I started teaching, and on the first day of school, I witnessed a whole lot of hands-on and abuse of children. And it was alarming to me because where I've taught most of my life, you know, just the way you speak to children, you know, there was a sense of consciousness that, you know, we're here to encourage children and empower them and make them feel like, yes, I can, you know, and go conquer the world. And here I'm visiting a school, I shouldn't say visiting, I'm starting at a school in a state that I have never been. I was just visiting for that school year. And this is what I'm seeing on the first day. And everybody's acting like this is normal. And so I was already able to see just a whole bunch of, you know, children sitting there, eyes downcast, afraid to look up, teachers with huge attitudes, yelling, screaming in their ears. It was just all of that going on day one of school. And so when I saw all the hands-on and the yanking, and the teacher took a palm of her hand and hit a kid in his head for not doing his homework, he was supposed to read a set of fifth-grade words. And after I witnessed that, I told her I was going to take him to the library. I wanted to test his reading. I had never seen this child. And he was unable to even recite the entire alphabet. He could not identify them if I pointed out the letters, and she's hitting him because he's not doing his fifth-grade reading words that he had in advance. I don't know. I can't remember the whole story. It's been a while now, but basically that's how they went.
Researched and studied that trauma will stop the neural pathways from forming. You know, it creates a block there for the child.
Right.
To be able to... Go ahead, I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, and the thing is that where this is occurring mostly, of course, it's, number one is black boys, followed by black girls, as far as who the primary targets are. And then all our children with special needs, and if you're black and have special needs, you're really going to get it. As a matter of fact, a boy with special needs in the state of Texas, his teacher literally suffocated him in front of his class. It was, she was brought up on charges of homicide. The judge said, yes, that was homicide, and dismissed the case. And that following school year, the teacher taught in the state of Virginia.
Wait a second.
And those kids were expected to be back in school. Yes.
Whoa.
Yes.
You're telling me that the teacher suffocated the child in the classroom in front of the other children.
Yes.
And a judge dismissed the case.
Yes. And things like this are happening every single day. And the reason I started out earlier saying that I feel like I'm contributing more to why it is getting worse, because as much as I am screaming on the rooftops that this is going on and being ignored, and then I'm letting people know, even to the degree I just expressed to you, and then this general pervasive silence, it's like saying, we don't care, government, do whatever you want to our children, we really don't give a rip. Now, some people might care to some degree about their own child. And the only reason I'm saying might is because I've been in...
Wait a second. This is deeply concerning because you just told me a judge dismissed a case where a child was suffocated in front of other children in the classroom by a teacher, and this teacher is reemployed elsewhere.
Yes. And did not have to leave there. It wasn't like they said, you got to leave the school. That teacher chose to move elsewhere, and she continued teaching that following year in the state of Virginia.
Folks, this issue is a lot more prevalent than we are being told in our mainstream media. We are not being informed. We are not being educated. And I am going to be hosting more shows with Paula Flowe of the HiddenStopsHere.com because we're going to be talking about this, and we're going to be talking about it a lot because this is the Pandora's box into this into the government immunity that occurs to our children, not just in the classroom, but in foster care. And we can get behind Paula and we can stop. This is something doable by we the people. We can stop this because you have a bill right now that people can get behind.
Yes. And Amelia, I was kind of getting ready to tell a story just a few minutes ago about back in 2009, I was working with a person who was into the campaign. They stayed a bit. They didn't stay long, but they supported it for a while. And that person and myself made calls trying to figure out, how do we have legislation written up? Now, I want everybody to know that there is legislation already written up. It's called the 14th Amendment Protective Right. And the fact that we're supposed to be protected, we really didn't need legislation to be written. We just needed our U.S. government to obey and enforce the 14th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, for which they hold their right hand up and swear in to do so when they become our elected officials. Okay, so there's not like we even need legislation. And in addition, the fact that in the I believe it's the 13th Amendment. It might be the 8th. I get those two mixed up sometimes. But it says that it refers to the wooden board as a deadly weapon, and that corporal punishment it is illegal to use corporal punishment. So we have two amendments in the U.S. Constitution already to take care of our children. However, because the average American has greatly failed to learn and also apply and teach the U.S. Constitution for their own use as well as for their offspring, these things kind of go right over your head like, oh, wow, they're beating the kids in school. Well, some of them probably need it. Okay, well, can we hire you to pick out the ones who need it? You know, that's usually my response to people who say that some kids need it. Okay, well, what about the ones that are getting it that don't need it? We just forget about them and just hope that at least we're getting the ones that need it. Is that what's going to make you happy? So the bottom line is that we have legislation already in place that our government is ignoring, and that the we the people part of this picture are either unaware of or just failing to pay attention. So because of that, my friend, in 2009, we were calling, and we finally got a hold of a legislator who said, this is what you need to do, and explained everything, told us who to call, and that was the lovely former New York Congresswoman, what is the lovely lady's name? Carolyn McCarthy. We called her, and we called her office. We told her everything that we wanted to say about this issue in school. She was supportive of it. We mentioned certain things we'd like to see in it, such as no federal funding for schools that will continue to beat children. All of that is in this bill. She crafted it. She delivered it June 28th, 2010. So we've had federal legislation since 2010 to protect our children. And the objective of the Hitting Stops Here, which began September 11, 2006, actually, let me take that back. It was 2008. So here we got started with this federal legislation, and that was when we went after having it written up. It was actually crafted and introduced 2010. That was June 28th. So that's what happened there. Now, once that bill went in, we started fighting, and then the bill died. I was on Facebook, I was posting, hey, we need a bill, this is what's going on, and I was giving pictures and articles, and that was it. There was, I got a like once in a while, I got a share every now and then, but basically, that's all that happened. So I started fighting again the following...
You got my attention.
I'm glad, Amelia. Thank goodness. And so we started fighting again, and the lovely Carolyn McCarthy submitted the bill again. Now, it was by coincidence. It went in, I think a couple of days before that big Wall Street blowout that happened several years back. And so it was good timing. We felt like, okay, people are saying, look at all of this violence. Children don't become violent when they're raised with proper care and proper discipline. So there is a connection. I mean, like I said, Psychology 101, we all learned it if we've taken that at the very least. And so we were fighting.
Now it's propaganda as well. I mean, we have these huge hate campaigns coming out of the mainstream media, and within, you know, the video games that are promoting promiscuous behaviors and, you know, violence.
Pornography all over the place.
Yeah.
Well, but see, like I said, that's the message we're sending out. So here we're fighting now to get the bill through a second time. Carolyn McCarthy submitted it a second time. We fought. We won. It's in there. Now we're campaigning, fighting, posting. No response from the people. The bill dies a second time. The third time, Carolyn McCarthy has now retired. She's gone. We're saying, okay, now what? Went to Washington a few times, kept posting and posting. Finally, Congressman Alcee Hastings, he's a Black American leader from the state of Florida, one of the pupil-beating states of today. And he submitted it. And so here it's May 2015, and that meant we had until January 2017 before that bill would expire. So we're fighting, campaigning. Nobody's paying attention. The bill's getting closer and closer to dying. I decide I'm going to go to Washington, D.C. I'm like, I cannot see a bill dying a third time that our kids need. Teachers are not just using that wooden board. The wooden board is the Pandora box to all the belts and the switches and punching kids and pulling hair and pinching and all the other stuff going on. If your government says you can use a deadly weapon to discipline children, then how on earth would you be arrested because you yanked a child by their hair and dragged them down the hall when these things are happening? Why would you have to worry? Teachers are using a deadly weapon. People know this is happening, and they're saying nothing. That's why these cases get dismissed. You get the big blowout in the news. Oh, a teacher hit a kid, a teacher raped a kid, a teacher did this to a kid. But I ask everyone listening, follow those stories. See if any of those teachers become indicted. See if any of them serve any time. If they pay any fine. And I want to know, because that will be the first one, and I want to know their name. Okay? So here we still have all of this occurring, and now I said, okay, I'm going to go to Washington, D.C., because if that bill is going to die for a third time, I can't be home warm sleeping in my bed. I just can't be. So I left February 16th, and I campaigned outside of the U.S. Supreme Court until December 2016. I stayed in Washington, D.C. I slept out there. There were nights when I was freezing. It was 40 degrees. After a while, I would just go out in the day. Then I was out more frequently in the summer. And then towards September, a very kind person allowed me to stay with her and her two daughters for a little bit. So I was kind of out on the street when it wasn't so cold with her, and kind of like just mostly at that point daytime, doing a lot of visits to the senators' offices, the congressional leaders, and that's how that went. And then finally, by November 24th, Obama finally spoke, I believe, at the United Nations, and he did say to ban, he said to stop the corporal punishment, but Obama balked. He kind of like, it was like, okay, don't do that anymore, and left. And I think he did that more so he could say, well, I told him not to. But the fact of the matter, Amelia, is that Obama at the time was our, incumbent chief commander of law. Mm-hmm. And when a president says to a governor, which he did, a state superintendent, which he did, principals, which he did, to stop doing something, if they fail to do so, they are committing insubordination punishable by federal law, because that's called treason. They are disobeying the president, and he chose to let him get away with it. He did nothing at all. He said, don't do this. And a lot of people are unaware of the fact that principals of schools are on the same level of leadership as a military sergeant.
Well, that's why we're saying this is where you are the buck stops here with Paula Flowe, folks, because the hitting stops here. You can go to hittingstopshere.com and you can support her in her efforts, because if we can stop the hitting there, we can stop abuses within the foster care system with children that are on government property in general.
Yeah.
And this is absolutely doable. So
the legislation is so well crafted. I mean, Carolyn McCarthy, first of all, let me give you a little history on her. Carolyn McCarthy is from Long Island, Queens, New York. So am I. And she has already witnessed violence. Her husband was shot and killed on a Long Island railroad. His son was with him. The son was paralyzed for a brief time. I think the last time I heard, he's been able to walk now, and but his dad is gone. And Carolyn McCarthy had the heart and the compassion, because she understands, in general, a person who's going to kill or respond to a person in any form of violence is generally a person who has faced this form of treatment in their childhood.
Yeah.
So she was the perfect person for us to go. And in fact, the person who told us, I know who will write that bill for you, and I'm going to call her, and if she's all right with it, I'm going to get you connected and blah, blah, blah. And she was. And she was the only one who responded after visiting all the offices and reaching out. And many people in Congress knew we were out here fighting for to have this stopped in our schools. And she wrote that bill. And the biggest problem since that bill being introduced on that June afternoon has simply been the silence and the lack of response to it by fathers, mothers, and childless adults in this country. And one of the things that makes me really sad that I have heard over and over and over since starting this campaign, September 11, 2006, is, well, they better not hit my child. And I want to say something about that, okay? First of all, those people who have an attitude that says, as long as they don't hit my child, all children are your children. All of them. Most of us who are mothers didn't even know we were mothers or were about to become mothers until maybe 1, 2, maybe 3 months, sometimes 4 months. We didn't even know we were having a child. So that child's not yours first, it's God's. God created that whole situation that would have that person be within your body, and so you had nothing to do with it other than coming together in probably some form of passion in most cases, and you're pregnant, don't even know it. So all children belong to all adults because they all belong first to God.
Sure.
So when people take an attitude of, as long as they don't hit my child, when any child is hit, your child has been hit. That is your child. And even in the Bible says to protect the children. It does not say protect your children, your child, your daughter, your son. It says protect the children. Mm-hmm. So we are failing as a nation that started out as a Bible-based nation, as a place of, we read the Bible now. We have a lot of churches today that have gone corrupt, and I would say, from my observation, 99.9% of them have gone corrupt. There's not a single church I have been able to reach out to and gain even an itty-bitty support from, other than good luck with that. So our churches are failing our kids first because the children are referred to as the greatest. They're referred to, God says the children are the greatest. So if we at all call ourselves going after a relationship with God, then we would want to know, well, God, what's the most important thing to you? Because whatever is the most important thing to you, I really want to invest time in that because I may not be out there sharing my faith. I may not be fasting. I may not be giving to the poor. But let me at least know, what is the most important thing to you? And let me just do whatever I can on that level.
Well, we all have our charge. We all have our charge and we all have our mission. And you are so passionate about this mission, Paula. And I'm so grateful that, you have taken the challenge and you're speaking out and you're speaking up. And I don't think that it's that people are not willing to get behind this. I think they're just uninformed, unaware. And I absolutely think we could get this done.
I think so too, but I want to tell you a couple of things. Yes, it is my passion, but that still doesn't change the fact that they all belong to us. It doesn't change the fact that we are all sharing the world with children who are being systemically abused every single day. So what my point was in that scenario was that when parents even say they better not do that to my child, they have to think for a minute that that little boy or little girl or teen who is being beaten in school, even if you do want to protect your own child because that's the only child you care about, you have to protect them by making sure that their peers are also protected, because left in unsafe conditions can produce the type of child and adult later on who can come and harm your child when he's no longer holding your hand to go to school with them. Okay, so even if we want to take a selfish standpoint, like, well, I don't really care. It's my child. I'm not worried about their children. I'm worried about my child. Good. But you would be doing well for protecting your own child by making sure that legalized child abuse is banned in this country, starting with our schools, where they go to be protected and to learn, not to become adults that are up there spraying out chemtrails. Who do we think is spraying chemtrails? Who's all right with doing Monsanto food? Who's okay with all of these, 7 injections of a child in one day that by the end of the day the child has lost their life?
A major aspect of this problem, if I may point out early if I may digress, you pointed out our 501c3s are no longer, taking any type of position, when it comes to community outreach and voices opposed to this. Well, how can people get involved, Paula?
Okay, well, if I've caught anyone's attention out there on the urgency of this, which I surely hope I do, let me just give you a little update. First of all, our website is down right now. I have to, I'm in the process of doing updates. So if you go to thehittingstopshere.com right now, it's not even on. It will probably be on within the next 3 weeks. I'm putting new information on there. Most of the information I post on the campaign is on Facebook, and it's under my name, Paula Flowe, F as in Frank, Lowe. It looks like the word flower without the letter R. And I post there just about every day. There are times I have to get off for a little bit, but for the most part. But everything that's posted there is informative, and my email is there, and you could contact me by email anytime. I also have an 800 number. Right now, you can leave a message. However, we have it more designed as an info greeting, and we're updating that. A lot of campaigning regarding CPS, as well as what's going on in our schools, is about to start for the months of November and December. I'm thinking this is a good time for a few reasons, one of which involves Tequila Riley that I mentioned earlier. But for the most part, you can call us at 800-515-9216. Our info greeting that will tell people other ways to reach us or how they can help will be going up starting around November 1st. So, but if anybody wanted to leave a voicemail, they can at any time, or an email to child, and the last word is environment, and that's plural. So check the spell check on that, because that is a tricky spelling. Again, that's child, environment, plural, @gmail.com. So that's another way. Or you can send me a message on my Facebook account. So that's how you can get in touch.
The easiest. That's probably the easiest. And we're going to be working on a series of memes to promote the Hitting Stops here, because we really want to see this go through. Our children need to be protected, not only in our schools, but in government care in general. The era of foster care or our teachers getting away with these crimes needs to come to an end, and it relies on us, we the people, to speak out. Like Paula has said, there are laws in place, but we the people need to speak out. Paula, thank you. Thank you so much for coming back on the show, and I'm going to ask you to come back in 3 weeks or a month when you get the website back up. I hope you join us again.
Okay. Thank you so much for having me on your show, Amelia.
You're so welcome. All right, folks, you heard it here. Porthole to Justice, the window to the truth. That was Paula Flowe, the founder of the Hitting Stops here. All right, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. You can subscribe to the show on Spreaker.com. I am also now on Patreon. You can subscribe on Patreon.com. And I'm also on Twitter and Facebook. All right, everybody, this is Amelia Duran, Porthole to Justice, the window to the truth.